of the porch from the front property line, but it's allowed to encroach 5 feet. And that's why the reduction in the setback is only 4.7 feet.
Okay, yeah, so she'd
Go
only be
ahead.
allowed to go to 10 because it's already
Yes.
at 13. So she's already lost 2 of the exclusion in the code, right?
Yes, that's correct. Is that
Okay.
the existing house that was built was non-compliant to begin with anyway.
Correct.
Well, I'm
Okay.
sorry, it became non-compliant when the porch was closed in. That is not something the current owner did. That was something that was done before she purchased the property.
So she's actually asking for another variance beyond the exclusion of another 5 feet is what she's doing. So we're getting close to 5.3 feet from a setback
Yes,
to the edge of the porch.
she's asking for approximately 5 feet. More specifically, she's asking for 4.7 feet that will allow,
In addition to the
5.3.
exclusion. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And those two numbers together equal the 10 feet in the.
Correct. Yeah, I got you. I'm on the same page now.
Okay, and I apologize for how complicated that is. I rewrote this table several times to try and figure out what's the easiest way to explain this.
I have a question.
Yes.
There are additional homes on that same stretch of street that have similar 5-foot setbacks from the street?
There are several homes in the 1900 block that are in that, I would say, that are in the general neighborhood that are this close and possibly might even be slightly closer than what's being requested here. House next door looks like its porch is at the setback, but yes, there are several other houses in the neighborhood that are close to the front property line, similar to what the property owner's requesting here.
All right.
And I believe I saw that both of her neighbors had signed off on this extension of her home. She's nodding yes. Okay.
So I think we're getting a little out of turn, right? We should probably talk to the applicant and then come back and then ask, once we hear her, come back and then ask some of those specific questions according to the procedures. Diane?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I'll finish up the staff
Okay.
report, and then next you would typically you'd ask me questions, and then if you which I sort of went out of order there, and then you would go to the applicant and give her the opportunity to speak or answer questions.
Okay, and I didn't mean to cut you off, Drew. I'm just trying to make sure we follow procedures. Okay.
Of course.
I'm new at this.
I have very small code.
It's written down right here. Applicants next.
Okay, so in the staff analysis of the variance criteria, the first criteria has to do is there a hardship? And the staff's review is that the porch is a very desirable feature to have, but it's not necessarily essential to the use of the house. I would say though, if the porch were added, it probably would enhance the appearance of the front of the house and therefore benefit the neighborhood. Porch is a typical detail found on homes in this neighborhood. Number two, are there reasonable alternatives available? The staff's analysis, the property is a typically narrow lot. It's too narrow to be able to put a porch on either side. As it is, a porch than less than 8 feet could be constructed but at 3 feet, it's very limited in terms of what you'd be able to actually be able to do on a porch if it were only the 3 feet that would be allowed under the existing code. So the more depth of the porch that's reduced, the more the depth of the porch is reduced, the less flexibility there is in how the porch can be used.
Mike, is there anything that would stop the applicant from closing in and making that space conditioned without another sort of review process? Not that that's Megan's intention, but could that happen?
No, that would not happen. That shouldn't happen. What would occur to close in the porch would require a building permit And that's essentially how this came about, is that the applicant applied for a front porch. And I believe it was probably Wonder Martell at City Hall is the one who spotted that there was a need for a variance in order to do this. So presumably the same thing would occur again if someone were to request closing in the porch. Okay,
So
yes,
if we're gonna, so she did pull for a permit. I did see Safe Built's comments. They're okay with it as long as it's within, they maintain a 5-foot setback all the way around the peripheral
yes.
of the house. So, I mean, do we want to hear from the applicant and then come back and any public comments and then come back and then take care of any additional questioning to
Okay,
you, Mike?
yes, I've got 3 more points.
Okay, I'm trying to, okay,
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
The variance did not result from an action by the applicant. That's correct. The porch was closed in before the owner and applicant bought the house. Are there reasonable protections are afforded adjacent properties? I have been and looked at the property. It doesn't seem that the addition of the porch would represent a problem to properties in the immediate area, and the owner of the property did contact the adjacent property owners for support letters or emails. The variance is the minimum variance that will make possible the reasonable use of the land or structure. It's possible to have a porch less than 8 feet, but as a standard, 8 feet is probably a very desirable depth in terms of being able to, as an example, have a table and people to sit at that table. So the 8 feet is not an unreasonable request to be making in terms of a usable porch. And then finally, the granting of the variance will observe the spirits of this chapter. The code states a variance should be an extraordinary matter. As I noted above, the porch is desirable, but it's not necessarily essential. Secure the public safety and welfare. We did receive 2 comments back. One just came in today from Excel, which said they essentially had no issues with it. And then the building officials comment about maintaining the 5-foot setback, which be done, and then ensure that substantial justice is done. The proposed variance would allow the addition of a porch, which is a common feature of homes in the neighborhood. And that is the staff report.
All right, thank you, Mike. So should we now hear from the applicant?
Yes.
So hi, my name is, I'm here.
Oh, there you go, okay.
Megan Quigley. I've lived in this house for 8 years, but I've been a
Ms.
Clear
Quigley?
Creek County resident.
Sorry,
Yeah.
hold on 1 second real quick and we'll just swear you in. Diane,
Oh, okay.
just swear the applicant in, please.
Do you swear the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
That wasn't
Okay,
on my-
so can I continue?
You can.
Okay, thanks. So I've been a Clear Creek County resident. I actually went to Carlson in the middle school and high school, and I taught there for quite a while. I have really good relationships with both of my neighbors. Adele on my one side wrote a letter of support, and then Rod also said he was going to contact you guys for support. I'm very much into maintaining Victorian architecture. That's part of my home maintenance plan is the 1900 home. I love reestablishing it and kind of keeping that architecture. And Idaho Springs is really a front porch kind of town, in my opinion. I see one of my students still lives on this street. I love to have my dog out in the front and kind of just see and greet everyone. So I just really, with quarantine and being at home, I would really, really enjoy some outdoor living space. And it will definitely make the appearance better on the front of the home.
Is that all you had?
Yeah.
Good, okay. So next, we'll have any public comments. Did you have anybody to speak for you?
We had some person to sign up earlier, but I don't see her on the Zoom.
Okay. Well, with
Is
that,
there anybody else that
would like to speak on her behalf. If not, then I would say we will move to members. Do they have any questions for the applicant or to the staff? Any of the board members?
Carmen, does the chair need to say that I'm closing the hearing at this point?
Not until he gets questions answered.
Yeah, it doesn't say that yet, Mike. That's number
Okay.
7.
Okay, sorry.
You're all over it, Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry.
No, you're doing great.
So does any members have any questions for Megan or Mike or any of the staff?
I don't have any questions, but I did drive by the house, and like our home, at some point, somebody decided that interior space was precious and closed in the porch. Unfortunately, I don't have room to extend my porch, but I do see how adding a porch to that property would, as a realtor, enhance the property itself and probably increase the value of the property as well. As long as I didn't really notice the other setbacks, but it seems from the response earlier that it's consistent with other houses on the neighborhood, and it's not going to be the one that's sticking out while everybody else is hanging back. That would be my only question. But otherwise, I do agree with the applicant that it would enhance the appearance of that particular home.
As I mentioned earlier, that most of the houses seem to be around the required setback, but there are other houses in the neighborhood that are as close to or that the front is as close, the front of the house and the porch are as close as what the applicant is requesting. So it's not the predominant. Other examples.
Yeah. So Drew, I went by and drove by too. You know, it is sporadic on front porches, houses, things like that. So in my opinion, it wouldn't adversely change the look of the street to have that done. But also too, I don't know if Megan's still on. Is she still on? Okay. So I will say that on your layout, your architectural layout, your steps are very close to the 5-foot mark. I think part of the process was the staff was talking to you about recessing the steps into the porch to maintain that 5 foot. I will recommend that, you know, since Safe Built said, you know, to make sure that was done, and plus the city has asked you maybe to do that. There's, you know, that may be a possibility for you to do that. You just need to be careful on the height of your porch versus the amount of steps you need to set back in if you choose to do something like that to maintain that 5 foot 3 inches. So just be careful with that, because there is a landing code going into your front door, and you will need to make sure you maintain that. Otherwise, you'll build it and they'll make you redo it. So if we choose to approve your variance tonight, so let's just keep that in mind.
Okay, thank you.
Did that make sense?
Yeah, I think we've already altered the plans.
Okay, so I didn't see the altered plans, I guess. So, okay, all right. I just didn't want you to get in a trick bag and think you were doing something great, and then you didn't have the required landing space in front of your front door. So
I think I saw
Yeah, no,
that's
I
where you
appreciate
moved.
it.
Did you move the stairs to the side of the porch? Was that the solution?
I think we recessed them in. We just put them in so that it's almost a cutout, you know, like, so there's going to be that 8 feet on the one side, but the steps will just be in. There's a lot of homes in Georgetown like that.
Right.
I've been looking at a ton of different ones to see
and
what'll
I
work.
think you'd be okay as long as your porch height isn't over 28 inches. So, because that will require you to have four treads. So that'll put you back in about 40 inches. So just got to watch that. Okay. All right. Nope. All right. All right. So I move that we close this hearing.
I have a question.
Do we have to vote on it first before we close, Diane?
No.
Okay.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Ann.
So if we okay this variance, are we okaying it with that restriction of the steps? Is that what we're looking at doing?
Think, and I can answer that. I think we're trying to, we're giving her a variance on the 5 to make sure she maintained that 5'3". Is that correct, Mike? Is that what we're coming down to?
Yes.
Yeah, okay,
Yes, because otherwise, let's just say if you called each step a foot, that would be another 3 feet of encroachment.
correct.
So that's why I had discussed with the contractor the idea of could we recess the steps so they're not adding to the encroachment into the setback.
Correct. And that would maintain the 5'3". So,
Yes.
Okay.
okay.
And if I might, Mr. Chair, sorry, this is Carmen.
Yes, ma'am.
By the way, hello, everybody. I haven't had the pleasure of being with this group yet, I don't think, but I'm the city attorney. And to Board Member Zimmerman's question, indeed, if you were to simply move to approve resolution number VB 2002 that's on your agenda, that resolution that is provided in your packet, board members, includes that recommended condition from staff. So if you were to simply move to approve that resolution title, that condition is found in there in that language.
Okay.
So, Carmen, when I close the public hearing, then the next is to ask for the motion to be granted, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and should I read out the VB 20-02 when I make the motion? That way it includes everything in the packet. Is that what you want me to do?
Yes.
Okay,
I think
I got
after
you. Okay,
after you close the hearing, call for a motion on that, and whoever
Okay.
makes the motion, and it can be you, Mr. Chair, but whoever makes that motion should read the whole title of the resolution, and then you'll be good to go.
okay. So I move to close the public hearing at 5:59. For the record, do we need to take a roll call on that or do the motion first?
No,
Diane?
sir.
No.
You can just declare the hearing closed. You're
Okay.
good.
Okay, I'll declare it closed.
And Carmen, by title, do you mean just the first 3 lines? Or the entire pages?
No, just the title of the resolution.
Okay,
Okay.
It's on the agenda as well as the top of the resolution.
So just the first 3 lines of the resolution.
okay. So I move to approve the resolution VB 20-02. Does anybody want to say? We have a second?
Well, and then you'll want to go on and say, Mr. Chair, a resolution conditionally approving yada yada.
Okay. What is this? That's not on here, but I'll say that. All right.
Okay.
So resolution conditionally approving the motion.
I'll tell you what, I'll help you out here.
You're in the
And
chair.
after I say this, just say so moved, okay?
Okay,
A motion to approve resolution VB 2002, a resolution conditionally approving an application for a variance from code section 21-63 to reduce the front yard setback at 2126 Virginia Street from 15 feet to 10.3 feet.
okay. So you want me to
I
read the whole?
second that motion.
Yep. So if you just say so moved, Mr. Chair, then you've got a second from Board Member Moore.
So
And then-
moved.
Perfect. Perfect. Are you good, Diane?
I'm good.
Okay.
Okay.
You can do a roll
Well-
call and you're all set.
I'll do roll call. Doug Smith,
Yes.
Ann Zimmerman,
Yes.
Ben Moore,
Yay.
Drew Van Doren.
Yes.
Alrighty.
Nice job. You're good.
Congrats.
So we open the next public hearing at 6:01. And that is for 1614 Wall Street. Variance request to reduce the front setback from 20 feet to 12 feet, reduce the minimum lot width from 50 to 45 feet, and to reduce the minimum lot size from 5,000 square feet to 3,000 square feet. Do I need to keep going?
I want to hear about from the applicant.
Staff report.
Yeah, we got staff report. So
Yes,
Mike, you want to give us a staff report?
yes, the proposal, the applicant, who is also the property owner, proposes building a residential structure in the R3 zone district that will include several dwelling units. The request has three parts to it. One is to reduce the minimum front setback, required setback from 20 feet to 12 feet. Number two, reduce the minimum lot width from 50 feet to 45 feet for multifamily use. And three, reduce the minimum lot size from 5,000 square feet to 3,900 square feet, again, to allow multifamily use on the property. Again, the board has the authority to grant variances. It should be considered an extraordinary remedy to grant one. The board is able to impose conditions that it feel are necessary, consistent with the code and the comprehensive plan. And then I'll note, with respect to this particular project, this should be looked upon as a two-step project. If the applicant were to receive the variance and proceed with the project, the board tonight is just considering the variances and whatever conditions may be needed, if any, for the project. If the applicant proceeds from here, they will need to submit a subsequent application for a final development plan in order to build anything other than a single-family home. A single-family home doesn't require this additional application, but because the applicant would like to do several units on the lot, that requires a final development plan application that will be reviewed by staff as well as by the city's consultants. There will be a public notice again for that application. It will go to a hearing by Planning Commission, for which there will be the public notice. Planning Commission will make a recommendation, and then it will go to City Council to make a decision. So there is another step. And so the variance board tonight is not considering the details of the design. The board's role tonight is to consider is there reason to grant these variance requested by the property owner. Okay, now in terms of existing conditions, in 2015, the city approved the annexation, rezoning, and subdivision of what was referred to then as the Urso properties, the owners of. This particular property we're talking about tonight is Lot 2 in the Urso minor subdivision. It's the middle of three lots that run along a shared driveway that on maps is shown as Wall Street, but in fact, it's a shared driveway. It is not a public street or maintained by the public. It's a shared driveway that serves the three lots. There is a large fourth lot that adjoins the north side of these three lots. That fourth lot includes more than 90% of the land in the subdivision, and that was transferred to the city as open space as part of the approval of the subdivision. In terms of physical characteristics, the property slopes steeply up to the north. The shared driveway that runs along the south edge of the lots and is referred to as Wall Street sits on the top of a retaining wall. There's a narrow strip of level land running north from the driveway on which there are two existing houses. From lots 1 through 3, the rear part of all three lots contains steep sloping property. So it's a very narrow space that's actually level, and those three lots then slope up to the lot 4, which was the open space that the city now owns. At one time, there was a single family home on lot 2, which is the property we're looking at. That structure burned and was removed, and so that the property now is vacant. I'll note further that at this point that the other two homes that are in lots 1 and lot 3, they are also at the 12-foot setback that is being requested by the owner of lot 2. So I've listed the major code requirements in the following section. And part of what occurred is that when the subdivision was approved, the minimum lot size for multifamily was 5,000 and could be 3,900 square feet for single family. And the minimum lot width for multifamily was 50 feet for multifamily and 35 feet for single family. Now, the subdivision, when it was approved not at the 5,000, this lot was approved not at the 5,000 square feet, but at 3,900 square feet. And the same with the minimum lot width. The lot as it was approved in the Urso subdivision was only about 46 feet wide instead of the minimum requirement. We've been through the records that we have in our files regarding the subdivision, and we did not find any reason as to why was this lot originally created at less than the minimum lot size and less than the minimum lot width. Because it could easily have been made the minimum lot width and minimum lot size, but for whatever reason at that time, a smaller lot and a narrower lot was what was created and approved. So I'll get to this later, but all of this was done before the existing property owner and applicant ever acquired the property. This smaller size lot was created. So now comparing the standards to the existing lot, again, I've just repeated it here. You see the standard for the three requested items: lot size, lot width, front setback. What's the standard to allow the full range of uses of the R3 zone? The reduced standards that allows only the single family home, the size of the existing lot 2, and then finally what the applicant is proposing be the new requirements if the variance is approved. One of the things that was brought up during the course of this application being reviewed was whether or not the code had been changed in the time of this application. In 2014, the city amended Chapter 21, which is the land development regulations, which includes the regulations for setbacks and lot size. And this amendment, this version of the code, the 2014 code, was in effect when the Urso subdivision code was approved. In 2019, the city again amended the code, and this is the code that is in effect, the 2019 version, but the front setback, the minimum lot width, and minimum lot size in this code are the same as those that are listed in the 2014 code. So to get to the staff analysis of the report, would the applicant suffer hardship if there were the strict application of these regulations? This is in staff analysis, this is a very narrow piece of land in terms of what's actually flat. So if you're talking about the front setback, every foot of setback means pushing the building further into the hillside, which is very expensive construction, and you also don't want to be disturbing steep hillsides in terms of maintaining the stability of the hillside. So the existing topographic conditions of the property coupled with the lot dimensions constitute a hardship that does not apply to other lots that are within the zone district. So it appears that this first criterion has been met. There are no reasonable alternatives or alternative locations. Again, because of the size of the lot, the narrowness of the level area, there really aren't practical ways of moving the building to accommodate it or redesigning it without incurring the substantial costs related to building further into the steep hillside to the north. Number 3, the variance did not result from an action of the applicant. This is true. This was a subdivision that was approved in 2015, long before the applicant bought the property. Reasonable protections are afforded adjacent properties. There is the potential for significant impact to adjacent properties from a multifamily project if it's pursued. The final development plan process, which would occur after the variance process, would need to address several matters and potentially more, including there be adequate access for the increased traffic as well as any emergency vehicles, the possibility of vehicles going off the edge of the current path that does not meet the street or driveway standard. Again, there's a retaining wall there and it's been raised in the past. If someone drove off the edge, they'd be falling down onto the property below. And then the need for geological investigation as to whether or not there are any hazards related to construction on a property that is steep as this, because some of the construction will still need to be cutting into that hillside. For this criterion to be met, staff recommends the following condition: development of the property for any use permitted in the R3 zone district, including but not limited to multifamily use, must meet all relevant standards and requirements of the Idaho Springs Municipal Code, including but not limited to required additional, expanded, or improved public improvements, water, sewer, street, driveway, and applicable impact fees. Number 5, the variance is the minimum that will make possible the reasonable use of land or structure. The proposed 12-foot front setback is the minimum needed to accommodate the driveway shared with the other lots to the east and west, which have this approximately the same 12-foot setback. With respect to the lot size and width, the existing regulations and lot dimensions that were originally approved make it possible to do a single family dwelling, but it does not allow the wider range of uses that are allowed within the R3 zone. And the original request for the subdivision was that these lots be zoned R3. So it would be necessary to these variances for lot width and minimum lot width and minimum lot size would be necessary to allow the multifamily use to comply with those standards. And then finally, the granting of the variance will observe the spirit of the chapter. The code states that the variance shall be considered when it only as an extraordinary remedy is required to allow reasonable use. The steep slope, the narrow strip of level land restricts the development of lot 2, and the minimum lot size and width are unique to this property. The other properties in the subdivision do not have that, do already meet the minimum lot size and minimum width, so they're not restricted in this fashion. Secure the public safety and welfare. The staff has noted in above criterion 4 several measures that must be addressed as part of the final development plan if the property is developed for multifamily. And finally, ensure that substantial justice is done. The proposed variance would allow the development of lot 2 at a density contemplated by the R3 zone designation and similar what is possible in the other lots within this subdivision. I'll note that the required notices were provided in terms of a sign and the notices to surrounding property. And that's the staff report.
All right, thank you, Mike.
I have questions.
Do we want to hold our questions until after we hear for the applicant, or we want to?
I want to ask a question.
You can ask me now, or you can ask me later.
All right, go ahead, Ben.
If we approve this variance, then he goes to another application, go from R1 to R3. Is that true?
No, in a fashion, but the property is already zoned R3. He's allowed to do a single family. The lot is large enough to be able to put a single family home on it. However, to do the multifamily, he will need to seek approval of a final development plan. Anything other than a house is required to, anything other than a house, whether it's an office building in another zone or a triplex, those have to have a final development plan approved by city council at a public hearing after receiving a recommendation from planning commission. So this is a several month process that has to occur after the variance hearing we're at tonight.
Is it possible to have the variance included in the hearing for the R1, R3 property?
Well, the variance information would be part of what is provided to both planning commission and city council. So whatever action you take tonight, if the applicant's able to move forward, then the information from this hearing would all be provided to both planning commission and city council when they consider the final development plan.
Why cannot we push that to the planning commission and say, let's review the variance at that time?
Well, the variance board is the board that's been given the authority to consider variances.
But can the planning commission make that adjustment also?
That would
It's a
different.
sorry,
Go ahead.
Micah.
Go ahead, Carmen.
Sure, if I may. It's board member Moore and members of the board. It's a simple sort of jurisdictional issue. That's, you guys get the big bucks to be on this board because you get to make those kinds of hard calls on variances. The planning commission simply doesn't have the authority to exercise that power. That power is all yours.
Yeah, well,
But-
I think it should be bungled together.
Well, it's I think Mike laid out well that it's really a two-step process. I hear what you're saying, and I appreciate that because they are related for sure. This really is a prerequisite to the applicant owner's ability to even seek approval to do multifamily on the lot. So this really is a predicate to pursuing the second part of it, if that makes sense.
I think that the property is pretty tight. And to make a residential out of it, I think you should go to the planning and the PUD, whether it's going to be a whole redistricting and redesigning what's going to be there should be tied together, regardless if we're giving up our power or not. I still think it should be done at the same time or we after the first one.
Yeah, well, I'll say this. Your observations about the limitations and the dimensions of the lot are fair, and it will be within the purview of another body, the planning commission and council, to monitor and evaluate and ensure compliance with things like traffic and setbacks. And if it indeed does get developed for multifamily, the kinds of nuts and bolts issues I think you're alluding to that really do need to be vetted. It's just that's in another sort of pot.
That's right.
This pot.
I think he's applying the wrong pot. That's what I think.
You think what? I'm sorry.
He's applying to the wrong pot.
Well, staff directed me to this pot. So here we all are bubbling in together in this cauldron. So
let's move on to the applicant and swear him in. And Ben, I've got some of the same issues that you have, but let's discuss them after we hear from Andrew, because it may persuade you on some different thought process. So.
Drew might have a question for staff, or her hand was raised.
I do, and I apologize if I missed this in the bulk of what I read. How many units are you planning, Michael? Was that in there? I couldn't see that. Several has been noted, but I'm not sure how many were intended for that spot.
It's 3 is the maximum.
3, okay. And this might be for staff. I'm assuming that if we put something larger or with more units than was previously there, there will have to be upgrades to the water and sewer. Who bears the cost, the city or Michael?
Those are costs that the applicant would have to meet, and those are all listed in the recommended condition.
Okay.
if you decide to approve it, there is a condition that talks about, is there adequate access to the property for not just the additional cars, but for emergency vehicles? Is there adequate fire protection for the property? Is there adequate water and sewer for the property? Has the stability of the slope been sufficiently investigated that it's safe to construct the larger building there? So
Okay.
that's a recommended condition.
Is that also, would that also impact, I know that, I don't think it's right above it, but I think it's sort of kitty cornered adjacent to where they're putting the townhomes behind the Elks. And so that traffic junction there that is sort of on the north, is that northwest? The northwest corner, I'm not very spatial. The northwest corner of the Elks, where the townhomes, the new Habitat townhomes will come out, and then and then Wall Street curves down, and then those three, the Urso minor subdivision comes down. Would we also be looking at that, or is that part of the second process?
Well, there's two issues there. I think one is just for clarification. You're right. There was previously a Habitat for Humanity multifamily project, which is located downslope or on the other side of that retaining wall. So just south of this property, adjacent to it, is where the Habitat for Humanity project would go.
Okay.
When we talk about the adequate access, that also would include in making sure that that is a safe route, because the issue has been raised, and it's mentioned in the staff report, about, is it possible that someone's vehicle might run off the edge of the retaining wall and fall down on the property below? So that's something that would be looked at as part of the final development plan, the next step.
So not us, but that's planning. Okay.
So,
Yes.
Mike, it may be better if you kind of separate out what we're doing tonight and what the FDP is going to do, because there's a whole lot more of architectural engineering process that has to go in front of the FDP. All these questions that we're asking is logistical issues. For instance, I did see I guess your structural engineer did a semi-traffic plat showing the direction and the back end and back up of the cars coming in out of the under the garage into the street. All that will be in the FDP down the road, correct? I mean, you want to explain the more of what goes into that than what we're doing tonight?
Yes, the FDP will be a complete look at an application for doing the 3-unit project. That's looking at, is the road adequate? Does the design meet the design standards? Does it have adequate utilities? Is it a safe location? Can the traffic be handled? There's a very wide range of topics that will be looked at in the FDP application. The variance application is limited to just the 3 issues and any conditions you think need to be tied to those 3 requests. The requests are, how close can the building be to the south edge of the property, which is where the shared driveway is? How wide, what's the minimum lots required in order to be able to use the lot as an R3 lot? And what's the minimum lot size in order to be able to have R3 uses on the property? Those are actually only the 3 items that the board tonight is making a decision about.
Okay, Mike, can I say something? Can I add to that? The reason that they're in front of us tonight is for us to approve that variance. Once we approve that variance, then the owner of the property will then spend multi-$1,000s with an architect to go in front of the FDP. The FDP will then tell them whether the architectural and structural and engineering design is adequate for the property that he bought. What we're doing tonight is just giving him permission to proceed on to the next phase. So that's basically what we're doing tonight. We're not
Yes.
approving him building anything. He's still got another process that's more stringent than what we're doing tonight.
That's correct.
Okay.
Right, and I think that's well put, Mr. Chairman, and perhaps think of it as you all are gonna draw the building envelope, or you're being asked to draw the building envelope, period. Then how the thing gets built, and if it gets approved down the road is in another board's hands.
Yeah. So
And the net result is to be treating this property in the same manner as the other two lots that were created in the Urso subdivision. That's the net effect. That's the net result of what the applicant is requesting, is for this lot to be able to be treated the same as the other two R3 lots in this subdivision.
Despite the fact that it's significantly smaller.
Yes.
all right. Drew.
Mr. Chairman, are you ready for a motion?
No, let's hear from the applicant first. And then do you want to swear him in, Dan?
I will. Do you swear the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
I talk.
Please do.
Ben, Mike, in my mind, I'm applying to build a residence for me to live in, and I cannot and will not probably build a single family home with that setback because of the mountain. So this whole thing, I have to tell you, I'm a little confused. I'm building a home for myself. When I saw that piece of property, because I've been looking to live in, my mom moved my brother and I to Colorado, Southwest, went 50 years ago, and I'm a documentary filmmaker. I travel. I've been looking for years for a cool piece of land to build on, like near Idaho Springs, because I love that town. And so I was walking and I saw a sign and I saw that piece of land. And for all of you who know that piece of land, it's just gorgeous up there. So I took a walk and it was a sunny day. And I'm like, this is amazing. Okay. And I found out about the 20-foot setback, and I found out about the R3. Okay. And I'm like, oh, well, if I have a 20-foot setback, I'm building 4 feet from this mountain. So Mike, with all respect, I'm not going to build. This variance is for me to live there alone, or to have a home. But I'd love to do a triplex. I heard there's a shortage of housing in Idaho Springs. I'm R3. It's allowed. I'm thinking this is great. My brother wants to be in Colorado with his wife. The kids are all now in college. It's like I can get a duplex. Maybe I can do a triplex. And I go through all this stuff of the parking. I mean, I'm just trying to share with you my experience. So I discover that yeah, this is great. I can build R3. I start having designs done for R3 for a triplex. Figuring out the parking, 4 or 5 spots is enough. My brother's psyched and his wife is psyched, and I'm like, wow, I could do a little triplex of so that's what I envision. So, but this variance is whether I get a triplex or a duplex or a home. This variance applies, because even if I'm doing a home, I disagree. I can't even a home. I still have to build the same, whether I do a home or whether I do a duplex or a triplex, it's still going to be small. So I'm still going to have to go into that mountain unless I can get that front setback. I just want to be clear on something. This variance is about whatever I can build there. Whatever I can build there. These variances are for, just so everybody knows. And as far as the triplex or the duplex, awesome. If I can make that happen, I would love it. I even talked to Andy one time when I was there, like I could maybe offer one low-income housing. I'm an activist. I'm a documentary filmmaker. Great. Just be clear on that, everybody. This variance application is for whatever I can build there. And if I don't get the variance, I probably won't do anything because it's going to be too difficult. So please understand that mountain, I need that extra 8 feet actually. Okay. Whatever I build. Anything more you want to ask me? I'm new to this. I've never been in a meeting like this. I love it. And I want to meet all of you as soon as possible. And Ben, let me say one other thing. I talk too much. Ben, you're totally right. I mean, I get what you're saying and I hear you, but just understand this is for building anything. Okay. Really. I'm done. Thank you for listening.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Do we have any public, did you bring any public comments or we have anybody signed up, Diane?
No, sir.
Okay.
I did have, can I say one thing? I did call people and an engineer and all that stuff. All that stuff is not about triplex. All that stuff, the engineer, he's a great guy, Arthur, all that stuff. It doesn't say multifamily. It's all about building anything. That's all. It's
all right.
The engineer's report is about building anything is hard into that mountain.
All right. Well, thank you, Michael. Does anybody have any questions for Michael?
I have one.
Go ahead, Drew.
Is my mic on? Did your engineer look at the wall as well as the mountain?
He looked at, yeah, he looked at everything. He looked at everything. The wall, you mean the wall in front of me? The wall going down to Habitat.
Yeah.
He totally looked at that. And I had another engineer, Drew, who's an engineer. I had Drew look at that because I had a coffee once with Drew, and Drew came out and took a walk with me. This great guy, whatever, great. I don't know him that well. I shouldn't say great guy. I don't know, but he's an engineer. And I had him look at that wall because that wall scared me. So I was looking at that wall and I'm like, and really both of them laughed at me and they said, this wall ain't going anywhere. Some rocks might crumble. I know, Drew, I see that look in your eye because I had the same reaction.
Slow down. So
I had the same reaction. I was scared. And really they both said, look, you can see over here, some people pieced it together a little bit, and over here they pieced it together. The wall isn't going down, Michael. And I had a geologist look at it. I had everything done before I even bought it, you know? Anyway. I know that wall scared me too. I'm telling you.
Very well.
I know.
All right. So anybody else? I have Michael, I understand what your statement was as far as trying to decide, and you just need the variance on the 8 foot or the 12 foot setback versus the 20. I will tell you, you probably need to commit if you're wanting to do a multifamily because it's a whole different ballgame. So, even if we had, you had requested a setback for a multifamily housing from what I understand, what I've read, but if that's what you want to pursue, I'm just saying, even, no matter what we do tonight, I would recommend that you kind of decide because it is a whole nother ball game, especially going through the FDP and all that. So
you're saying decide what, whether I'm going
well, yeah, I've heard 3 different things from you. You want to build a house, you want to build a duplex, you want to build a triplex. So when you start getting into multi-family housing, it kicks you into a different code, which puts a lot more criteria on what you're doing. And, so you have a lot more life safety issues than you would as a standard residential, which I personally think you're going to have some logistics issue with the cars, but that's not for me to decide. That's not for Ben, Drew, any of us on the variance board to decide. That's something that your engineers need to work out with the city. So saying that, does anybody else, or do you have anything else? Mike?
I have a question.
Yeah, I am.
Am I correct in what I saw that the other 2 homes or buildings on that development, do have the 12-foot setbacks right now? Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Yes,
Okay.
All I'm asking is that I can start I guess, the bottom level at the same distance as the houses on my east and west.
Okay.
That's all I'm
And then
asking.
I had one more question for Mike too. Did you, I had read that you did your due diligence. You actually met with the city before you purchased the property on the R3, went through all the codes and did all that prior to purchasing the property?
I met Alan a couple times, this
Okay.
gentleman Alan, and he didn't, nobody knew about this 50-foot thing, by the way. Nobody knew about the 50, it seemed. And even, I mean, we just found out a month ago. Like somehow that whole thing was just lost by Molly, who was doing the designs, Alan, the realtors, nobody knew about that, those two variances. The setback, the setback, Alan had said, Michael, because of the mountain, okay, I mean, I don't know if I should say this, I don't know, but basically Alan said, Michael, I think you'll have no problem getting the city to give you less of a 20-foot setback because it's a private driveway. The other houses are at the same distance. Yeah, I mean, he said the front setback, he doesn't think you'll have any problem with, but whatever. I don't want to, I mean, that is what it is.
Well, I think the board should take all that into consideration. So
that's totally the case. Absolutely, totally.
Did anybody else have any questions for staff or Mike or Michael?
Mr. Chair, this is Andy Marsh.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Andy.
Could I just ask Mike Davenport as the staff planner to confirm to confirm the answer to Ann's question, please, on the setbacks of the other homes?
Yes, within the packet, there is near the end of it, there is a drawing called Urso Minor Subdivision Sheet 2, and it shows the location of the 3 lots. It shows the location of the house on the adjacent lots, and it shows the location of the house that burned down. And all of them are at about the same setback of around 12 feet. In other words, they're the driveway width, maybe 1 foot from the edge of the retaining wall to the wall of the house. So 12 feet is what it looks like on the other 2 buildings.
Okay, thank you.
I have one more question. Is there a height limitation to the properties that he would also be subject to, or would that be a variance request?
He has requested it. There is a height limit, and I think when he was working with an architect, she was aware of the height limit on the property.
Michael, do you know what that is?
It's 35 feet.
I don't have a problem with that. That works. That's great.
And that's 3 stories. So that you're thinking parking and then 2 stories above?
That's what I'm thinking. Parking, 2 stories above, and small. It's going to be small regardless of duplex or triplex. It's going to be tiny, kind of small, tiny things.
The houses to either side, are those 1 story or 2 story homes?
One is 2 stories, about close to 35 feet. The one on the east, and then the one to the west is 1 story.
Thank you.
Sure. Somehow the one, I don't know how, it's 2 stories, but the one I know to the east, because I measured it, goes up almost 35 feet.
The rock house?
It has a very tall, steep roof on it compared to a lot of other houses.
Thank you. Any other questions? I'm happy to answer.
Thank you.
All right.
If there's no more questions, I move to close the hearing at 6:41 p.m.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, did you guys take public comment?
There was none.
Yes, he did not have any.
I believe.
What does that mean?
Okay.
What does that mean, public comment? Meaning,
if you had anybody on your behalf that wanted to zoom in and speak on your behalf.
Okay, yeah, I messed up on that. There were a few friends who are neighbors who,
Yeah, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't.
Or-
So,
yeah, I couldn't bring them in because it was too late.
Or
Can-
if a citizen signed up and said they would like to comment on it, any citizen has the right to be able to comment at a public hearing.
Can I say two quick things? I'm sorry. Is that okay? Two quick things. The year that you, assuming the variance is approved, is the year that it's approved for. Is that a standard thing? Because it seems like a short amount of time to me, and I'm not a lawyer, but it just seemed short given COVID and given everything and given whatever. And it said to obtain a permit. I'm wondering if it could be like to apply for a permit. I just don't know how long things take, and a year seemed short. But Carmen, is that standard? You're nodding yes. Fine. It's just a year, period. And the other thing I wanted to ask, I'm a little nervous about something, and I need you to advise me. It was a bit of a surprise to me, and I'm not saying anybody did anything wrong, that this was so focused on multifamily. I really thought it was going to be focused on a residence, on variances for a residence, and that the multifamily thing was going to happen down the line or not. And so what makes me nervous right now is if you're not deciding now, and given that this didn't quite get phrased the way I thought it would, because I'm assuming that if you all heard that, okay, he wants the variances for a residence, and Alan, before he bought it, said it's no problem, the front setback and the 45, 50 feet thing seems to me like, why deny that? So to me, this request is such a no-brainer for a residence, but it gets complicated, like Ben said, for an R3, which I thought was the next step. So if there's any possibility, seriously, that you all are going to say no to this variance for a residence, I kind of want to pull the whole thing.
and Carmen may correct me, Michael, but I believe we're trying to give you a variance tonight for a multifamily unit. If whatever we come up with, then you will have to decide later. Is that correct, Carmen? Or we're not?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, and
Okay.
if you allow me, I mean, Mr. Kastenbaum isn't my client, but I'm happy to answer sort of this procedural question that you seem to have, sir. And that is, if the board indeed does grant the variances, the 3 that are requested and laid out in the staff report, then Mr. Kastenbaum, you have then the flexibility over the next year to decide everything in the menu of R3. And so sir, and the board knows, let's say you do decide to do single family, because that's just what you want, and you decide money and everything, that's what you want to do. If then in that you pull a building permit in a year to build single family, the variances that are necessary for the R3 development sort of fall away, right?
Yeah.
You won't be getting a permit to exercise that right in a year. So board, I want you to also hear, and public who may be listening, to the extent Mr. Kastenbaum does not exercise the variances authorized, the full menu of them, the full slate of them, the ones unexercised will dissolve after a year and go away. So you wouldn't sort of have this lingering authorization to use that small lot in a multifamily way forever ad infinitum. It eventually would go away if it's not exercised in a year. Does that make sense, Mr. Kastenbaum?
It kind of does. Thank you. It kind of does. Does this mean that if it's approved for multifamily, and then I decide because of cost and problems and logistics, I go single family, or I'm just not approved for multifamily and I go single family, do I still get the 8 feet?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
That's
sir.
like for me, that's the whole make or break here. And that's why, Carmen, with all respect, if there's any possibility that I'm not going to get it and you all are going to decide no variance is granted tonight, I'd rather regroup and pull it and not have you decide tonight and think through this and apply again as just a residence, because I don't know if I have one shot at this.
Right.
So can you just give me your suggestion there? If I have one shot at this and there's a possibility you guys are going to deny it, I'd rather pull it and just apply for the 8 feet for single family, if you understand what I'm asking. Or does that not make sense?
It does. And I'm looking at the code, Mr. Kastenbaum, unless you know off the top of your head.
If there's any possibility I'm going to be
Right.
denied, I'd rather pull it and apply again in a couple months as just a residence. But, I just, I don't want to, because if I have to live.
Carmen, can I say something? Technically, if
Yes,
he, whatever we approve or disapprove tonight, he is in fact asking for a multifamily variance. So if for some reason one of the members does not want to approve it, I think what he's asking, can he come right back and ask for a variance on a residential dwelling?
Right.
Is
And that's what I'm looking at the code right now.
My understanding of the code is that the way it's written, the R3 would allow any use within the R3 zone, which includes single families. So if this is approved, it is approved for single family as well as multifamily. And then the process that it goes through from there's one process for single family, and there's a different process that goes through city council for multifamily.
Right. You know what? A couple things. I'm glad you asked the question. I think what Mr. Kastenbaum is asking, and the chair as well, is it's quite common in codes to see a prohibition against reapplying for something that is denied within a certain time period. We see it a lot in zoning. If a rezone application is denied, what I see a lot in local codes is a waiting period of a year to reapply again to rezone if you're denied under the code criteria. I do not, perhaps for you, Mr. Kastenbaum, the good news here is I do not see a similar mandatory waiting period to reapply if you are denied in the code. In other words, let's say this is denied. I do not see a minimum time frame for you to wait to apply again for just the single family residential setback issue. So that's a possibility. I'm not projecting what the board will decide clearly. Okay. And I don't think you have to either, sir, because you could apply again. One other thing I noticed that I will mention when I was reading again this variance code section, in regards to the year period, Mr. Kastenbaum, it is a code requirement. It's a requirement of law locally that 1 year time period applies. That is standard to every variance granted by the city. I do note, however, that the code further authorizes the city administrator to grant someone one extension of 1 more year if it says cause exists. And, under the law, cause is basically a good cause, a reasonable reason. Okay. So great. Given, as you mentioned, COVID, given the challenges that may be presented by whatever it is you may wish to do, if you find yourself nearing the end of a year period, if you were to get a variance, you could apply. Again, I'm not saying it'll be granted or not, but you certainly could apply for one extension. So I just wanted to mention that too.
All right. Hey, thank you all. Okay, I won't pull it. Listen, everybody, if you approve it, like I guess Mike is, the staff is suggesting, if I can build a triplex and it not be a problem and it be good for the city, and it's, then that'll get dealt with, right? And yeah, there you go. You don't say whether you're approving or not right now.
Well, we're fixing to here in just a second. Okay. All right.
Okay.
So I've moved to close the hearing. It's
Mr. Chair?
6:51. Yes, sir.
I have
It's
a
Andy.
question as
It's
well.
Andy Marsh, and there's another
Go ahead,
question. There's another question as well from another board member. I think what Mike Davenport was saying earlier, and I see it the same way, but maybe I'm missing something. For the purposes of the variance board decision, it doesn't matter what is built there. What I believe this variance is doing, these variance requests are doing, is establishing the parameters of the envelope, whatever's built there, whether it's a single family home, a duplex, or a triplex. Am I missing something? So isn't that correct?
Yes.
Carmen, you agree with that? Okay. So I'm just not sure it makes much of a difference, whether, I don't think he has to decide, or it makes it much of a difference. He's talking, R3 allows up to triplexes at least. So this variance board is just ruling on the building envelope, whatever is built. If he decides single family, as Mike Davenport said, that's one process. If he decides to build a duplex or triplex, that's going to involve a final development plan and a whole different process, much more stringent. So I just want to make sure everybody's clear on that. We're just talking about, well, let's keep focused on this is just the parameters of the building envelope for whatever he
Okay,
builds.
so Andrew, or Mike, I had a question to that then, because on our resolution, it calls for multifamily use. So is the same criteria for a single family, the dimension of the lot in an R3, is it the same as a multifamily?
Well, what will occur is if a single family application is submitted, it's a simpler process. City staff and the consultants to the city will still look at these issues, but it's a much simpler, shorter process that a single family home comes. In other words, whether it's a single family, as an example, whether or not it's a single family home or a triplex, we need to know that the steep slope above it is stable. That doesn't change. But how it's reviewed is a much shorter process and a much simpler process. So those issues do get looked at, but they're looked at in terms of a narrower range and in a shorter, simpler process.
Okay.
And if I may add to that, Mr. Chair, Drew's like raising her hand very patiently. So she has a question.
I cannot see Drew, so I'm sorry, Drew.
You're next, Drew, promise. Well, actually, that's up to the chair. But if I may, I think what you might have been getting at, Mr. Chair and members of the board, if you adopt the resolution that's in the packet, it does reference in the title, the variance is sought for intended multifamily use. However, the way we have crafted that resolution, it does not lock the applicant into developing it for R3. It simply says in the resolution, hey, should he go down that road, there is another process that he must follow. As Mike just laid out, it's a much more involved process, but he could still, even if y'all approve the resolution in the packet as it is, he could still choose to simply develop it for single family. So just wanted to make that clear. You don't need to try to recraft any language or change the resolution that's in there necessarily to achieve that result.
Thank you, Drew, did you have something?
I do have a question. Much in the same way that we conditioned the approval for Megan with the steps not encroaching, with all due respect to the amazing amount of work that Michael has already put into this process, and I do want to respect all the letters and all the work and probably the money that he's already put into this, would it be possible for us to condition this resolution as a single family home? Or does he really have to redo all this work and represent for a single family?
That's a good question.
Indeed, what is before you this evening is a request for those 3 different variances, which again, kind of give him all of his options. And as I mentioned before, if he chooses door number 1 with just the single family, the unneeded provisions that you authorize go away and don't linger.
But we're not allowed to condition it.
Well, what you're not allowed to do from the virtual dais that we're all on here this evening is to change an applicant's application for them, right?
Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay.
So he sort of, said, maybe I want to withdraw it, and he could do that if he wants to, but yeah, I'm not sure he needs to, but that's up to him. But you all can't change what he's asking for, which is sort of what you're proposing, Drew. Does that make sense?
It is what I'm proposing. The thought of a triplex on that space terrifies me a little bit, even with all the due diligence. And I personally would hate to see him put many, many, many more thousands of dollars into it only to be told no, that it's not feasible. And of course, that's not for me to decide. But for me, a single family home is a slam dunk. I think that the 12-foot setback also a slam dunk because it matches the others. I too live up against a piece of granite. It does not give. And, so you really have limited size. There was a house before. I don't see any problem with that. But putting multifamily there, I'm a big affordable housing person. I understand that we need more housing, but I'm not in favor of that. So that would be my vote if we are not able to condition it to 1 unit.
I want to say something, please.
Sure.
All we're trying to do here is say whether or not we can allow him to use a piece of property that the city has already zoned as R3. R3 says it can be multifamily. Now, they made a mistake. Maybe they didn't consider that as a large enough piece of property. But I think we're getting into a lot more information and situation that doesn't apply to what we're supposed to do. We just need to say, can he do what the city zoned that property to be allowed to do? Can we give him the setback and the numbers that allow that to happen? And I don't think it's our place to say, what's he going to build? How's he going to build it? Or anything else. That's not what we're here to do. We're just here to say, yeah, we can give you the opportunity to go forth with what you want to go forth with. I'm ready to vote on this. I'm ready to make a move if we can do that.
And make a motion.
Well, let me, all right, I moved to close the public hearing at, again, 6:59. All right, saying that, move to approve resolution, and correct me if I'm doing this right, Carmen. VB 20-03, a resolution approving an application for variance at 1614 Wall Street to reduce the front yard setback from 20 feet to 12 feet, reduce the minimum lot width from 50 to 45, and reduce the medium lot size from 5,000 square feet to 3,900 square feet for the intended multifamily use.
Very good,
I
Mr.
second.
Chair.
I second that.
Okay. What do we do
Roll call.
now? Roll call?
Doug Smith,
Yes.
Ann Zimmerman,
Yes.
Ben Moore,
No,
Drew Van Doren,
No.
All right. So your motion failed to did fail to pass because it's a tie vote, Mr. Chair.
All right.
There you go. Again, Mr. Kassenbaum, you heard what I said about reapplying. That is something that you would be free to do, given what you've heard here this evening and what you might choose to do.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
good luck, Michael.
Thank you.
Find another piece of property to bring your brother.
No,
has-
no. I'm going to apply for a variance and I'm going to have to go through this whole friggin' thing again. And, you know, I mean, it's whatever, it's fine. It's really unbelievable. The work that I did with whatever, it's okay. Thank you guys. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I'll move, we adjourn.
Chairman,
All right. Yeah, move to adjourn.
good night, everyone.
No.
Do we vote on adjourning?
You don't need to vote to adjourn.
Okay.
Chairman just adjourns it.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Yep.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the board. Thanks, Mike.
Welcome.